Oh, what's up, everyone? You're watching the Budgets and Brews morning coffee break, where we'll be discussing last week's finance news. My name is Rich,
And my name is Tony.
and
And
going to dive into this week's finance headlines. So, what do you got?
yes.
What's the first one, Tony?
So the first one we have here is the WhatsApp privacy and user agreement update. Users must now agree to share data with parent company Facebook. This includes phone numbers, locations, transaction info, contacts, and a whole bunch more. What do we
Wow.
got for our second headline, Rich?
The second headline, we have Bitcoin hitting 40,000 last week, and it's driving the total market cap of cryptocurrencies to 1 trillion. What is
Yes.
our next one, Tony?
Our next one here is Elon Musk became the richest man in the world with his net worth topping $188 billion.
That is a lot of money. Our following that is the fintech company SoFi is going public with SPAC with a $8.7 billion acquisition.
Yeah, pretty big news there. Next on the list here, we have Google workers have created the Alphabet Workers Union to protect end uses of artificial intelligence and machine learning tech that is being developed by the company. Pretty cool stuff.
Wow. And Alphabet, the company Alphabet. And not the alphabet, but the alphabet. 22 states, oh, pardon me, 20 states and 32 smaller localities raised their minimum wage, 27 of those to $15 or more. And what's really interesting, so fun fact real quick before we move on, the
Hmm.
federal minimum wage, I think it is $7.25. I'm going to we'll
Yes.
fact check that. But I mean,
No, you're correct.
you don't
Yeah.
even hear that. Like you don't even hear, anyway, what's the next headline?
The next one is the transparency and coverage rule. This is a new federal healthcare rule that will require hospitals to publicly post their prices for every service that they offer, and like this includes like the procedures, their components, stuff like that. So full transparency for the healthcare system.
All right, our next headline is oil prices shot up over $50 after Saudi Arabia said it will reduce its oil output by 1 million barrels a day next month. That's our
Yes.
next one.
Next on the list, we have automakers beat analysis estimates last quarter. So GM said that the sales in the United States are back to pre-pandemic levels. Automakers are doing good.
All right, our next headline is COVID. Vaccines are still moving slower than expected. The CDC data shows only 6.5 million Americans have received their first dose.
Still lagging behind. All right, last one on the list is Amazon making some big moves. They are buying 11 used Boeing 767s from airline companies to help with their air operations. So Amazon
I
making some big moves.
I actually got two bonus ones that just came in.
Yeah.
I just came in recently. So number one is mortgage rates. They fell to another record low. The 30-year fixed dropped its lowest in nearly 50 years to
Wow.
2.65%, and then the 15-year dropped to 2.16%. So those are scary low. And then the last one I got for y'all is Mercedes-Benz is trying to compete in the marketplace, and they just pumped out a 56-inch touchscreen pillar-to-pillar
Whoa.
hyperscreen display for its upcoming EQS luxury electric car. So
Wow.
very, and
Cool.
you can
Cool.
actually take a look at that on our Facebook. I actually put we could probably drop it on the YouTube video too,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
what
sure.
that looks like.
Yeah. Good bonus topic. So stay tuned. We will be discussing these in further right after our intro. All right, welcome back, everyone. Just to let you guys know, all the topics we're going to be discussing today, there will be links in the description. So if you want to learn more about them, you can check that out. Me and Rich, we're going to dive into a couple right now. Let's start with WhatsApp, their privacy user agreement update. So essentially, the world's most popular mobile messaging app announced last week that users must agree to share their data with Facebook. So, what data are we talking about? This would be their phone number, location, transaction info, usage and activity and duration, contact names, phone numbers, unique identifiers for other Facebook owned products. And essentially, Facebook and WhatsApp said this is for their business purposes, so they can like advertise and market to people. But Anyone who doesn't agree to this new terms and conditions, this new privacy agreement, will lose access to WhatsApp on February 8th. And this is kind of like upsetting a lot of people because WhatsApp is really, really popular and they're known for being like secure and stuff like that. Many people, such as Elon Musk, among others, are urging WhatsApp users to switch over to an app called Signal. Signal does not link any data to your identity, or Telegram and other encrypted messaging apps are available other than WhatsApp. So, just something to consider with WhatsApp. Rich, how do you feel about that?
That's tough because some people might think, well, who cares? I'm sharing my data
Mhm.
with everything anyway. I understand I'm being tracked and all of that. What's when you start like diving down to the core, and I don't know, have you ever seen that documentary? What is it called? Like The Social Network, or it's on Netflix. It's all about social
Yeah,
media,
yeah, I've seen
something
those.
like that. I forget what it's called. But what it really, it depicts is we're giving all these companies access to our every moves.
Mhm.
And it is really the target advertising that really blows my mind is like you're on your computer and you start seeing all these ads. Well, that's because all this data that you let someone use is selling it to all these other people, and now you're being targeted. When
Yeah.
your phone has a GPS, when
Hmm.
you start walking, let's say you were at your house and you went down to the store and to pick up some groceries. You decided to go
Sure.
on a walk. There's a billboard that's on, you pass it every day. That billboard company, let's say that they're communicating with these data companies with these apps. They know that Tony walks by this and there's a billboard for this product there and it's been there for like 6 months. Well, now that company knows, well, let's target his phone. Let's start sending digital ads because he
Yep.
has it in his, subliminal mind, this picture, this billboard that he walks by. Now let's hit him on the phone. Now let's hit him
Hmm.
with a newsletter or something like that for his email. And it's just like, whoa, like that's just crazy. The advertisement behind all that stuff is crazy. So it's not necessarily the data here. I'm 23 years old. I'm 30 years old because I'm like, oh, I don't care if they know that, but it's all the other things that
Yeah.
sort of gets lumped in there. And then you could run analytics on what do 30-year-old males that graduated high school or college. You start
What are
breaking
they
down all these
buying? Yeah.
categories, and
Hmm.
you start selling that data out to different companies who are really doing advertisements to you. To then in return, everything's about money. And
Yeah.
so how can we convert that to a sale? That's what's the scary thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to lose faith in WhatsApp because of this, because the whole thing was that WhatsApp's encrypted messaging system where no one can see your stuff, and now Facebook and WhatsApp's pretty much saying like, oh, well, we're going to be sharing your data with Facebook, and if you don't like it, you can kick the road, So they're kind
Mhm.
of, yeah, we'll see what to comes from that. But I will say that if you live in Europe, thanks to the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, WhatsApp data sharing policies will not change. So you won't have to agree to this new stuff by February 8th, and nothing is really going to change on your end. But
Yeah. But it's wild what what companies can do with your data. Because like I said, you might be like checking a box, accepting the terms, not really caring. But
yeah,
there's so much more behind that
right. And
that you don't really know what's going
And
on.
the Netflix documentary you were referring to, I believe it's called The Great Hack. So if any of our listeners want to learn more about how these companies collect your data and how it's being used and to the extent of it, if you have a Netflix subscription, you can watch The Great Hack. And one of the things they quoted was that Cambridge Analytics, which is an analytic company, has over like 5,000 data points for every single Facebook user. So just think about that, 5,000 data points for every person on Facebook, your preferences, your ages, your tendencies, your habits, stuff like that. It's pretty overwhelming.
The one
Um,
that I actually there might be a second one. The one that I was the social dilemma is
Social
the
dilemma.
one that
Yeah, that's
I
another
yeah
good one.
that
Hmm.
was the one that I found out a lot of crazy information that goes on behind scenes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those are both good ones, and they're both on Netflix. But let's move past that, and we are going to jump into Bitcoin. Rich, you got
Yeah.
got some stuff to tell us?
Yep. So for Bitcoin, this is one of the headlines that, really grabbed my attention along with probably everyone else too. I feel
Yeah.
like it's a hot topic, it's a buzzword, and that's why I
Yes.
definitely wanted to cover that specific one on today's episode and just I wouldn't say questions. Yeah, questions. I'm in a lot of different Facebook groups out there, and so a lot of people are actually asking questions, not directly to me, but I'm seeing them posted like, should I invest in Bitcoin? Should I sell Bitcoin? Like that, that's taken over. And so Last week it hit 40,000. I can remember back in like March when it was, 17 or, something like that. I mean, it's almost
It
doubled
was
since then. And so it
December
broke.
10th, it was like
Yeah.
17K.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like a month ago. So,
Yeah, and so it's just it's shooting up, and it's like, is this train gonna stop? Is it gonna keep going? J.P. Morgan, they said that Bitcoin could trade as high as $146,000 if it continues to compete with gold as a safe haven asset for investors. What's interesting about that is not too long ago, actually, J.P. Morgan, their CEO, they called Bitcoin a fraud. So it's interesting to see how quick they're saying,
yeah.
well, unless they do think it's a fraud and they think it's going to, hit high. But just by throwing that out there in the ethos, that gets someone like, it puts that number in their head like, oh, it's only at 40 now. And a
It could go. Yep.
well-respected, CEO of a huge financial corporation says it's going to go this high. Even if it goes half that, I'll maybe start investing. And so, it's, someone
Hmm.
by saying that statement could really, it could be detrimental to somebody who's like, I'm going to trust them and I'm going to take my all the savings I have and dump it in there because they said it's good, and all of a sudden they
Yeah.
tank.
That's a
And
really good point. And if I could just cut in for just a
yeah,
second, back in 2018 when the price of Bitcoin spiked up, that was because all of the consumers were buying it. Like me, you, Uncle Joe, everyone like who wanted to thought cryptocurrencies were getting interesting were buying into this. But now that it's shooting up to 40K, we're starting to see corporations buy into this stuff. So like Square, for example, they're like the payment processing company. They spent like $50 million and invested in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And we're seeing like other corporations kind of follow suit. And that's why we're seeing this huge growth. And another thing that a lot of people are saying about Bitcoin is that it's inflation proof. There's only a finite amount of Bitcoin. Inflation's not, you can't create more. However many are out there, and they're going to hold their value based on essentially speculation and what people value it at.
yeah, and that was, we had an offline conversation about that too. Is
Mm-hmm.
it looks risky in the point of there's a limited amount that it's not really, there's no oversight by the government. It controls itself. Anything that can happen. What happens when the
Yeah.
government starts to come in there? Is that even going to happen? Now, will they start coming in providing oversight and whatnot? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a pretty risky asset to be holding,
Yeah.
if you have that. And the total market cap of all cryptocurrencies, they topped 1 trillion for the first time. That was last Thursday.
That's nuts.
So, there are other cryptocurrencies that are getting in the news, and they're starting, they're getting it stirred up, where people are starting investing other things. Like, well, if Bitcoin could do this, maybe
Mm-hmm.
this next one can as well. And are we going to see another rally? Are we going to see a bubble? Is it going to pop? Like, I don't know. What do you think, Tony?
Well, it looks like a lot of the industry experts are saying it's going to continue to rise. I don't really know. I still think it's a little bit sketchy to use Bitcoin or really any cryptocurrencies as like a valued asset for your investments. But it's not, I mean, I'm not going to miss out. I'm not going to be one of those people. So I'm investing a very small amount every week just into Bitcoin. I'm just going to steady invest, see what happens. And if I lose, I'm literally only doing like $5-10 a week. So if I
Yeah.
lose that money, not a big deal. If it grows exponentially, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll see what
And
happens.
I say this, I preach this, broken record, but if you have the money to burn, then go ahead and do that if that's what you feel comfortable with, if your situation allows. But you should
Hmm.
not be using this to rely on like a retirement for
No.
you in the future. This shouldn't be something where you're throwing all your eggs into this basket, and you're going to try to like withdraw on
Yeah,
this,
it's a
you know.
commodity still, right? I mean, that's what I think of it as.
So, so if you got the money, cool, go ahead and play. But other than that, all the words mean nothing. And you should be doing your own due diligence to see, is there something that I do want to steadily
Yeah.
invest in? Okay. Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's finance headlines. And that wraps up this week's morning coffee break. If you enjoyed watching, we ask that you give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and oh, yeah, please share this with friends and family if you found it beneficial. That does it. See ya.
See ya.